What's going on, boys? It is day number 20 of reading through the book of Deuteronomy. Today we're going to be looking at a very short passage talking about what is mainly described as going to war. So, as most of us know, the ways of this world are not what the main issue is, but it is a spiritual battle that is constantly happening every day, that is happening within our spiritual bodies. The war between the enemy and God, and we're constantly being pulled to both sides, and we're being tempted, and God is calling us by name. But one thing that this passage really clarifies is that when we go into battle, we are soldiers of God's army. We have the opportunity to represent his army, to be soldiers, to go out and destroy the enemy. And what's great about it is that God is always there for us. God doesn't just send us out and be like, hey, you're on your own, hope you can make it. No, he's like, hey, you've got this. I'm going to be right there with you all the time. I only have this one section highlighted that I want to talk about for this video, and it's verses 4 through 8. Moses says, "For the Lord your God is the one who goes with you while you fight against your enemies to give you victory. The officer shall say to the army, has anyone built a house and not yet begun to live in it? Let him go home, or he may die in battle, and someone else may begin to live in it. Has anyone else planted a vineyard and not begun to enjoy it? Let him go home, or he may die in battle, and someone else may enjoy it. Has anyone begun to pledge to a woman and not married her? Let him go home, or he may die in a battle, and someone else may marry her. Then the officer shall add, is anyone afraid or faint-hearted? Let him go home, so that his fellow soldiers will not become disheartened too." So the first part is kind of a part we've talked about before. God is always there as our shield and on the battlefield. Another way I like to think of it is he is our riot shield. So I'm pulling a term from some video games. So for all the gamers out there, I'm going to throw a little bit of some gamer vocabulary in there for you. But he is our riot shield, so we are constantly trying to go against this, and God is that shield that we can hold in front of us. We can hold on to God, and he is there for us. He will shield us from the weapons of the enemy, and that we can go on and pursue and claim victory. And obviously we all know that we have claimed the biggest victory has been claimed by the Lord in defeating death. But what's important is this second part from verses 5 through 8. And the best way to summarize is that, when you step up to something, when you're called by God to take your stance on something, you must commit as a leader over your army. It's talking about in this situation with the Israelites, there's, when these armies of different nations would meet, there would be this kind of, I wouldn't say truce that's made, but this kind of first encounter with these priests, and there's always going to be a commander that was going to be selected from the armies, and the only way that it was going to be selected is if you were willing to say, hey, I pledge myself and I'm willing to stand my ground, and I'm not going to break through or fall through. Like I'm going to show confidence, because if you show weakness and you're up in the commander's seat, you show weakness, you show that you're afraid, the army that was supporting you before is going to be afraid too, because they're going to be like, oh my gosh, like this guy isn't who he said he was. And so that's where, accountability comes in very well. I believe that, we are all our own leaders in our lives. This morning, I was doing a kettlebell workout, and the guy who was leading it, Grapevine, if you're watching, was constantly reminding us of the F3 mottos and the mission. And accountability is probably one of the biggest things that I have with a lot of the F3 guys. I feel like I can always count on them, and go to any of them and just kind of talk about either workout stuff or just talk about life. And what's so great about it is that F3, the F3 motto is leave no man behind, but leave no man where you found him. So I believe that's how God is with us. So he doesn't leave us where he found us, and he doesn't leave us behind. He's constantly picking us up after we fall in time and time again, and he's telling us, hey, like, this is what we need to do. He's keeping us accountable, but we just don't know it because we, don't physically see it. We have to really focus on what is unseen, and it's hard to do that because, it seems like an impossible task to do, but God gives us the resources through other people, through reading his word in the Bible, to just sitting down and having some times of just, where you're just out in the open and it's just you, there's no distractions. And what's so great is, we know the Israelites, they're constantly going through these encounters with other nations, and they're having to go in to take these land. It even talks about later on how, that if there's people, if any of these armies are willing to, agree with you, you kind of create this truce for say, then you can go on and kind of, go about your day. But it says if there's some armies that don't, that you would go in and siege that city, and they would kill all the men, and then they would take the women, the children, and all the animals and products as supplies, basically, and forced labor. And obviously, wars are a very terrible thing. From the wars that we hear about in our history classes to the wars that we hear about on television. Wars are not something that we want to have happen because, a lot of people get injured and a lot of people lose their lives. And it's not something that we want. Nobody deserves to die. Nobody deserves to have their life taken away from them. But unfortunately, that's just the way the enemy's working in this world, as he is turning our minds corrupt, turning us against one another, and making us believe false things that is getting us into these corrupt situations. And we fall. And I believe God is looking down, and he is just so sad to see that. But just remember that nobody is out of God's reach. Just because you get tempted by the enemy one day to fall into a specific sin doesn't mean that you're out of God's reach. God can always reach you at any point in time. But what's great about it is that he doesn't force himself onto you. He's not a dictator. He's not a, hey, you have to do this. No, he's like, hey, I see you're falling into this. I know what it feels like. I know that you're struggling. But she's like, trust me. God is our life. God is throwing the lifesaver out to us. Think of yourself in the water. He's throwing that lifesaver out to you, and we have to go get it. And when we do, we can receive God's promises and God's wisdom towards us. And it allows us to stay confident, to stay focused, and most importantly, build up a bravery against the enemy, because God is greater than anything that could ever reside on this earth or reside in heaven. He's greater than that. The power of God is so great that nothing can stand in God's way. Nothing. And so that's where we're going to end off today. I'm going to go ahead and jump into today's daily prayer. We are in, today is August 21st. We are going to be looking at a title called Stumbling. And the verse connected to it is Psalm chapter 37, verse 24. Though they stumble, they will never fail, for the Lord holds them by the hand. Lord, I feel like I'm stumbling through life. I guess that you are with me because I likely should have done otherwise. Perhaps your hand is nearer than I thought. Help me, God, to see you moving in my life and to not be overcome by grief and stress. I believe you are faithful, but I struggle to see outside of my own circumstances, and my faith is crushed by the defeats I face. Lift my eyes to you. Let me see your glorious victory in my life. So, to see the works of God in real life just takes time, some searching, some devotional time with him. And that's something that I believe that is unique to all of us. It's not something that I can just say, oh, well, this is what you have to do. It's not like a Google search. Like, God wants you to seek him. But God does not say, hey, You have to seek me. I'm not going to come to you. You have to find me. You have to spend this time finding me. He's like, I want you to place yourself in a situation where you are pleading yourself to me. He's like, because I'm right here, and I want you to find me, because I will show you so much. God will tell us so much because he loves us, and we are created in his image. And that is today's word. I hope that you guys have had a great Thursday, and hope to see you guys tomorrow. Peace out, boys.